Hey, what's going on, guys? Jun here with Hapa英会話, and joining me today is Olivia. Hey, Olivia, welcome back.
Hi, June. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. So I want to continue this Hapa talk with you today. The topic I want to talk about is when you think in English versus when you think in Japanese. 英語で考えるときと日本語で考えるとき。Right, when you grow up speaking both languages, I think there are certain times where your mind goes into English mode, and then something happens, and then your mind goes into Japanese mode. And for me, sometimes there's like a mode where like everything is all mixed up, and there's like English and Japanese kind of going back and forth. But I realized over time that there are certain situations where I do tend to think more in English than I do in Japanese and vice versa. So I wanted to kind of get your opinion on that and just kind of share our experiences in those types of situations. So yeah, for you, let's start with 英語で考えるとき、日本語で考えるとき。First, does that situation happen to you? Do you have situations where you think in English versus where you think in Japanese?
So the biggest factor for me and what or how I think is environment. So I think my more dominant thought process is definitely English because, you know, I've spent most of my life in the USA, strictly in like American settings. But yeah, sometimes like when I switch to Japanese, it's usually like just as simple as when I'm around Japanese people. So if my mom has friends over and they're all talking, like having a little ochakai, like if I join in, then like my mind is like, okay, time to switch to like Japanese mode.
環境だよね。こうみんなが英語を喋っていたら自然にやっぱ自分自身も英語で喋るし英語で考えるけどだけどね例えばお母さんがねお母さんの友達をね家に呼んでみんなでこう日本語を喋ってお茶会をしているときに日本語が聞こえてくると、まあ、自分も自然と日本語で考えて日本語で喋るっていうようなことだよね。
そうですね。で今でもこうやって会話してるときもジュンさんが急に英語から日本語とか日本語から英語に変わるときもすぐlike my mind like immediately switches to like whatever language is being spoken to me.
Gotcha. Yeah. で、これよく聞かれるんだけど、こうやって英語で喋ったり、日本語で喋ったりするときに、やっぱどうしても、例えば英語をね、第二言語、外国語として勉強する人たちっていうのは、最初ってこう、頭の中で翻訳しないといけない。頭の中で常に、これって英語で何て言うのかなとか、英語が入ってくるときにその英語のセンテンスを日本語にして翻訳をするプロセスがどうしても間に入ってしまうらしいんだけど、オリビアの場合はどう？その頭の中で翻訳している？それとも英語は英語、日本語は日本語っていう感じなの？
やっぱり英語と日本語は同時に大きくなるときに習ってきたから、その頭では翻訳はないけど、例えばスペイン語はもう9年間勉強してきたけど、like when I think in Spanish, like especially when I haven't used it in a long time, I have to translate like from English into Spanish in my head first. But for example, when I was like studying abroad in Peru, you know, I'm surrounded by Spanish like all the time, everywhere. So like one time I remember this exact moment, シャワーしてる時に何か普通にシャワー中の考え事をしていたら、スペイン語が出てきたんですよ、頭の中で。スペイン語の言葉で、あれ今スペイン語で、like I just had a thought in Spanish, like I'm actually like, you know, starting to process this language differently. So like in that moment, it kind of hit me. So I think it's just a matter of like, you know, environment, like we said earlier, and then practicing and how much you're using whatever language is being spoken.
Right. It's like just really immersing yourself, right? Like in that language, in that culture, in that like country that you're living in. And, you know, I think Spanish is a good example because, you know, to you, that is really kind of like your second language in a sense that you had to relearn or like learn as an adult. And I, you know, I tell my students too, in the beginning, you know, translating in your head is completely normal. いきなりね、英語を英語で考えるっていうのは、I think it's almost impossible unless like you are a little kid learning the language growing up. でもやっぱ大人になってからだと、どうしてもやっぱ頭の中ではこう翻訳をしないといけないっていうのは、やっぱ出てくると思うんだよね。だけど、やっぱそれをもう毎日毎日繰り返しのようにやってくると、気づいたらオリビアのようにシャワーを浴びてるときに急にパッとスペイン語で考えたみたいな感じになるんだよね。 Yeah.
うんうん。
Yeah. でもね、僕たまに、like for me too, I'm just like you, Olivia. I think, English is, I would consider English my mother tongue. It's easier for me to speak English than it is with Japanese. 英語の環境にいても、even if I have American people surrounding me and everybody is speaking in English, there are a few moments where I always think in Japanese. And I don't know if this is the same with you or not, but growing up, I learned kuku. Do you know kuku? Which is the kakezan. Yeah, the multiplication tables.
懐かしい。
懐かしいでしょ。
うん、懐かしい。うわ。
So when I have to like multiply, for example, like 4 times 9. So for me, like growing up, I learned the multiplication tables in Japanese. So automatically my head would go shiku 36. And it will be like a process in my head where it's like in Japanese or like 8 times 8, Hapa 64 or something, or like, gogo 25. I mean, automatically like my mind goes into Japanese mode. And it doesn't matter if there are a million American people around me speaking to me in English. これはもう絶対に、ククは掛け算はもう絶対に日本語で考えちゃうんだよね。オリビアってどう、掛け算は英語、日本語、それとももう答えが頭にパッと出てくる感じ？
いや、もうクク何年もやってないから、like I hadn't thought about it like this before, but I am completely the same way. So I actually learned like kuku, kakezan at Hoshuko, at Saturday Japanese school before they taught it at American school. So already my brain was wired like 2, 2, 4, 2, 3, 6, like, that whole like multiplication table. And then, once we learned it at American school, like I wasn't going to change my thought process just for that because like the Japanese version is so quick and so like much shorter, I think. So if I go like 8 times 8 is 64, like it takes a while for that answer to come out. But like Hapa 64, like that process is so much faster in my head. So I think that's part of the reason why like in elementary school, I came from a pretty small school with a small class size, but I was always the fastest one at multiplication tables. And I think a huge part of that is because like the Japanese thought process was much quicker for me.
Yeah. じゃあ最後に、ちょっとした一言、例えば、なんか腕とかをこうぶつけたときに、いたとか、例えばなんかこう座るときに、よいしょとか、do you ever make like those sounds? Because I know you have your bachan. I had my bachan growing up too. And I always hear like my bachan go, yo isho. And I don't know if it's like a habit that I picked up, but sometimes like after a long day or when I'm sitting down, I'm picking something up, I will make like these Japanese sounds,オリビアはどう？なんかそういうなんかパッと出てくる一言は、英語、日本語、is it ouch or is it like いた or is it like よいしょ or like 英語では何も言わないのかな？
やっぱり、日本語よく出ますよね。私が一番言うのは、いたと、なんか熱いもの触ったら、あち。Like, I don't really say ow or ouch. Like, it's always like, ah or いた. And like, just the ah sound is kind of funny to me because like a, I, U, like those vowels aren't really common in English. Like, it's more like a and a sounds. So when I say like, ah, like, I'm trying to get someone's attention or like pointing something out, like any situation, it's always like, ah, like 小さいつ sound comes out of my mouth. もう思わず出てちゃう。
出るよね。And I guess one last thing I remember when I was living in Japan that one of my classmates pointed out was I think I dropped a pencil in class and somebody picked it up for me. And it was obviously a Japanese student because I was studying abroad in Japan at the time. I dropped it and the student picked it up and I said, すいません. And I think my friend who was with me said, ジュンってすごい日本人だよね。そういう時ってアメリカ人って Thank you っていうのが普通なんじゃないのっていうふうに言われて But なんかやっぱ日本語の場合はその時になんかやっぱりありがとうっていうよりもすいませんってなんか言っちゃうんだよね。なんかオリビアももしそういう状況だったらすいませんって言うと思う。それともありがとうって言うと思う。
ちょっと難しい質問ですね。Like, I guess I would say like, oh, thanks in English. でも日本語では、ごめんとか、
すいませんとか。And that's the thing is I think if I was in the United States and this happened in class with my American classmates and I dropped the pencil and someone picked it up, my automatic response to that would be, oh, thanks, man. And I will say thank you. But in Japan, obviously this is something that happened so quickly, I wasn't thinking about it, but 一瞬で出てきた言葉が、すいませんって出てきたから、やっぱりその辺はこう、直訳で考えてるんじゃなくて、やっぱり日本語ではこういう状況ではこういうふうに言うんですよっていうのが、もう自分の中で多分プログラムされてるんだろうね。
絶対そうだと思います。もう自分の DNA ではないけど、なんか how your brain works, like you can't change that process. It's like kind of set in stone from the moment you learn both, like from a child, or from a young age.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Don't forget, Olivia is an amazing teacher on Cafe Talk. All of her information is listed in the descriptions below, or you can go to cafetalk.com and find her there. All right, Olivia, thank you very much. I'll see you again.
Yeah. See you later, June.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.